Well, I finally decided to replace the oil seals which operate on this feed shaft because I'm just a bit fed up with getting oil everywhere. I had to buy these oil seals from the 600 group because they're a non-standard size, 1 1/4 by 7/8 by 9/32. And in fact, even the ones that the 600 group has supplied are not as original, because the original ones were 7.14 millimetres thick, and these are 6.36 millimetres thick. Not that that will make much difference. In fact, it may be an advantage. It may result in the seal bearing on a slightly different part of the tube, which might be a good thing if the tube is worn. The reason I didn't replace these seals earlier when I was refurbishing this apron is because I couldn't work out how to get this shaft, this tube, which is the tube through which the feed shaft runs, couldn't work out how to get it out, partly because the parts diagram shows the same thing here as it does over here. And I couldn't see an answer to it other than just gouging out the old seals with a spike. I wanted to take this tube out and have a look at it and inspect the bearings, but I couldn't work out how to get it out. This time I'm going to insist on disassembling it completely to see what's what. First thing to do is remove this bracket. And because this is held on by two, among other things, two dowel pins, and there doesn't seem to be any easy way of extracting them, I just wind the saddle up to the other end so that I can actually, by slightly bending these, exploiting the flexibility of these shafts, pull it away from the bed. Then we can undo this to free this shaft from these gubbins here, and we should be able to wind the saddle to the right, and these shafts should just come out thusly. And then we should be able to just withdraw each shaft. Now we should be able to just undo these 4 bolts and lower the apron away. I'm just going to undo these 2 completely now. Right, I'm just going to drain this into here overnight, or whatever. The trouble is, this is such an awkward thing to hold. You think it'll survive in there like that? I'll just leave it there overnight. Well, this thing's upside down. Now that I can see it more clearly, this is the tube through which the feed shaft goes, and there appears to be a brass ring here into which the rubber seal is pressed, and there is a grub screw here, and similarly a similar arrangement on the other side. So I think it may be easier than I thought to take apart. At this point I should explain that if all you want to do is to replace these 2 shaft seals, then the easiest way to do it would be to gouge a point into the old shaft seal in the position shown by the green arrow, and use that to lever the seal out, and then just tap in the replacement seals and you're done. In the rest of this video I take the thing apart because I want to see what's inside and how it really works. But you don't need to do that if all you want to do is to replace these two seals. I've made so many of these gaskets or joint washers. I'm really fed up with doing it. Because there is no visible pin on this gear here, I'm assuming it is integral with the tube that goes through here. And then we've got some bearings, thrust washers or whatever here, and similarly there. So if I were to take this tube out, I need to be careful and see what happens with those. But the first thing obviously is to undo these grub screws. I think if this gear is integral with this tube, then this tube must come out this way, since it clearly can't go through that. If I undo this grub screw and see if I can loosen this brass thing at this end. That's an ordinary grub screw, and I don't think there's another one inside. Well, I'm just going to clear off the paint that I have carelessly put around here. And it's this brass thing clearly won't come out with the paint there. Right, well, now that I can see it, you've got this brass ring with the oil seal pushed into it and the tube inside, and then there's an O-ring around the outside of the brass ring, and the ring is held in position by the grub screws I've taken out. So my theory is, now that I've cleaned this out, if I bash on this end of this tube, I think it will start to come out. So gently is that moving? I don't know. I won't actually hit it very easily at this angle. Not convinced that that is moving. Well, I think the tube is moving, but not the brass sleeve. Right, well, if I put a bit of bronze up against that, and I whack it with this, I think it is coming. It's awkward with this bit in the way that I can't actually hit it. Yeah, it's definitely coming. seems to be coming out slightly. I don't know, that this casting is slightly skewed that way, so that it looks as if it's coming out not straight, but I think it is coming out straight. Now I want something, well, maybe I can go on a bit. Come on, you little bugger. You've got to come. No, there's no... That is the tube sliding within this sleeve, but I want the sleeve out because I can't get anything else out without it. I've reached the limit of what I can do with this thing. I need something thinner than that. Right, so I've just made a bit of aluminium that will stick in here because I haven't got any brass or anything else. So let's see what we can do with this. There's a probably wobbly here. The problem is, as I'm bashing this way, this bearing, thrust bearing, also wants to come that way, and yet it's obstructed by this gear. So I think I've got to take this off first. There now follows a gigantic wild goose chase while I remove something that it turns out I didn't need to remove. So you can skip forwards if you want to avoid that. But I include it here for the sake of being straightforward. So my problem is that in order to get this tube out that way, I need to get not only this gear but also this thrust bearing to go out that way, but this bearing is obstructed by this gear. So I've got to get this gear out of the way before I can complete this movement. So this gear is fixed on by this roll pin to this shaft. But I think if I remove that roll pin, I'm not going to be able to get this gear out because it's going to foul on the side of this. And it looks to me, I don't know what's holding this gear in. I don't see a pin on that. It looks to me as if the shaft cannot go this way because fouling on that. So I will try removing this roll pin to start off with, but if that doesn't work, this has got to, this whole thing can rotate round here up into clear air, fresh air, where I could get this stuff out. But to do that is problematic because I need to remove this bracket, which is the interlock to stop you doing threading and saddle feeding at the same time. That's easy, just undo two set screws. But then, and I can unscrew this knob, just freeing that. However, I also need to get rid of this bar that goes across here. I also need to get rid of this bar that goes from here to here. However, that is tapped and it is bolted through from the outside. So to get rid of that bar, I have to remove this information plate. And to do that, I've got to remove all the knobs from here, which is a bit of a pain, isn't it? So let's hope I can pertle it some other way. Right, well, I've taken this pin out and I can knock this thing like that, but I can't get it out. And I can't move this shaft far enough away to get this gear off in this position. I have tried bashing this shaft. It's a bit awkward, but it's about as far as I can get it. Is in this angle, and I still can't get this gear off. So I've got to get this thing up, which means I have to do all the things that I just mentioned, which I really don't feel like. Alright, well, I've taken all those knobs off, and now I can undo these two screws, set screws. Right, well, I've got this plate off, so now I can move this rather further, which is a good thing because I can then get an Allen key on this set screw down here, which I couldn't do before. I hope I can just get this on, otherwise I'm never going to be able to. I must have been able to do it somehow. Right, so I've got that out. The top screw, which is actually near the bottom of the unit, is longer than the other one. However, disappointingly, I still can't get it further than there because this flange hits on there. It's a bit of a bummer. I wonder if this goes, will this go? No, it won't. So how am I going to get that out? This is a big problem. It's a big pain up the arse, is what I call it. This does not look sensible to me. So I can't get that any further than that because that fouls on the body there. I can't get this any further because it won't, it just won't come out. It will not come out that way. So what am I supposed to do? I don't know. See, the thing is, this shaft has got to come out that way or that way. Well, it can't come out that way because it fouls on the body. It's just possible that it could come out this way, but the reason I don't think it will come out that way is because if you look at the parts diagram, this cog gear there engages with a Woodruff key on this shaft. So I'm thinking that the presence of that key would prevent me from knocking the shaft out that way. In any case, I can't get anywhere near it to knock it. Well, I'm thinking I might have been on a wild goose chase here because my problem was that I thought that this thrust bearing had to go past this cog, this gear, and maybe it doesn't. Because maybe if I just continue pressing this out this way, when the tube has got right the way out to here, I can withdraw this thrust bearing upwards, in which case I didn't need to do any of this work on this at all. So let's try that. Still loose. You'd have thought this would have come out by now, wouldn't you? This thing is still loose. We're not damaging anything. What's keeping you? You know, you could surely. Am I pressing? No, this has got stuck in there. Maybe that's fouling on something in here now. What is to stop this thing from coming out? Don't think it is fouling on anything. At last. Right, so that's a thrust bearing that was in there, I think. Then we can pull this out. Yes, just as I thought. That. Don't do that. Right, so that comes off there, and it's got the thrust bearing on it. And then it's got the gear, and there's another thrust bearing there. There, and another one there. I can take this out completely now, and we can investigate that and see how it's supposed to come apart. What was that? I hate things that drop without telling me. Was that just... or was it something that fell out of there? We'll come to that later. Oh. Yes. Right. Well, now that I've got it apart, I can make sense of the parts diagram, but the parts diagram wasn't sufficient to make sense of the thing when it was all assembled, to my mind, anyway. So we have this brass bush, which is sealed to the case with an O-ring, and it has a shaft seal in it, and that fits on the shaft there. Then there is a thrust bearing and then there's a thrust bearing, this gear which is integral with this tube, another thrust bearing, the big red thing that we've been worrying about, a third thrust bearing, and then another of these things on this end, which I have not taken out of the case. What we plainly see is that there is very considerable wear on this tube where the seal has been bearing on it. However, there is no wear in these bushes, so it's not a case of the tube having been moving laterally and causing wear. It's just a case of the seal wearing a groove in the tube. Maybe the fact that the new seals are of a slightly different thickness from the old ones will help us there, because if we can make the new seal bear slightly to the left or slightly to the right of this groove, that would be a good thing. If we can't, then there's no alternative but to replace this tube with its integral gear. Or, if I was very ambitious, make a new one, but I very much doubt whether I could economically make one. It'd be cheaper to buy one, if I can get one. Regarding the other one of these bushes at this end, if one takes this out, then clearly this could be bashed out from there. But it's not necessary to bash it out, because you could just hoik the old seal out and bash in the new one without touching that bronze bush. I'm thinking I can just knock this seal out. Thusly, this seal is as tough as old boots. Absolutely zero flexibility in it. So I've cleaned this, but I haven't polished it. You can see that the old oil seal has worn a considerable groove in the shaft, but I'm hopeful that because this new seal is slightly different size, that it will come to rest at a different place. So I've blued up this area here, and if I put this on, it has to press against this thrust washer against this gear, so that's the position it will be in. If I do this, I think we can see that it's going to come just this side of the old seal. So let me see if I can show that more accurately. So the seal is bearing just to the left of the groove that the old seal has worn. So I'm hoping that that's going to be all right. Right. Well, I'm hoping that I can get this in so that the grub screw hole lines up correctly. think that's about right. The point is, the position of this bush determines the left-right position of this whole assemblage, and this gear has got to mesh on that one. I don't think it matters an enormous amount how far over it is, but we need to get it roughly right. I'm not convinced that just touching. I think a little bit further. I think now. Should go in, yes. Any further? I'm not convinced that it's getting in the hole. Perhaps a little bit further. I don't think it can go any further than that. Yes. Right, so that engages now with the original hole. So that's near as damn it right. So I'm thinking now, I put this in and get that on there. That on there. That side of this. And then this lot on there. Have I left anything out? No. I was just thinking, should I put this in first? But I can't put it in first because I've got to get this. Or could I? Yes, because this won't come out. Yes, this is right. But now I need something to. I think I've got. This one will go in. Don't immediately see what's stopping that. Why is that not? At the moment, this tube won't rotate. Got plenty of room to go. Perhaps it'll come right by the time I get it in. Oh, it's beginning to rotate easier. Still got to go further because it's got to go like that. Yeah, what I need is, right, I've got something to clear this. Still got a long way to go though, hasn't it? So it can't be as loose as that. That's enormously loose. It's got to go incredibly much further. Oh, because this what it was, I remember, it was actually sunk in a bit. A long way, in fact. I need to get one slightly thinner than that. Right, so on we go. You basically want to go on until that slop has disappeared. Well, we've still got a very slight slop. I think that's fine. Well, it doesn't fit in as well as it did before. You know, there's a reason for that. The bush is slightly rotated that way, so it's not engaging on the hole as it was before. It's my fault. Perhaps I'll just drill it out a bit, because I can't be bothered to take it out again, can I? Well, that has been completely successful so far. There's no leaking underneath at all. One thing that's worth noting is that if you use this pump to push oil into the saddle, then it also comes out here in the gap between the top of the apron and the bottom of the saddle. This is because there's no joint washer and not supposed to be a joint washer between these two things. So if you don't notice this, this oil will drip down to the bottom and give you the impression that there's a leak at the bottom of the apron when in fact there isn't.